All right, so we're focusing on the impacts of computing concept area today. So we're going to talk a little bit about that concept area as well as how work along the standards rationales, show you how to create a rationale, and then give you some time to create a rationale for any of the lessons that you are using for your portfolio that have impacts of computing standards in them. If you don't have any of those done yet, that's absolutely fine. You can work on another lesson, another concept area. It's the same process for every concept area. Welcome. Should put that slide first. So this is our little welcome activity. If you are a happy kitty, you can put a 1 in the chat. If you are a sleepy kitty, you can put a 2. And if you're a grumpy kitty, you can put a 3. I'm a little bit of a delirious kitty today, but I'll say I'm happy. Stayed up too late working. All right. And Larissa, I just want to make sure you're getting my emails because I've had a few bounce back. Are you receiving them?
I am. And remember how I went through that whole email fiasco over the summer?
Yeah.
So they switched everything. So it should be just L Macahan at eastiron.org.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I think that's what I actually reached out to Jessica because
Yeah.
I was worried because sometimes it would bounce back, sometimes it wouldn't. I'm like, I just don't know what's going on here. So
And you sent me the Zoom link, right?
yes. So
Yeah. So
you're
all
in.
set with
So I
that.
didn't know maybe Debbie, because Debbie had mentioned you hadn't received it yet.
And then Debbie was able to send the rationale document today when we met with her at Hellendale. So that went
Okay.
through. So thank you for checking.
Perfect. Okay. Yep. All right. Okay, so within our Zoom meetings, we're still going to follow the agreements we created during our time this summer. You know, we have a mix of cohorts here. So we have some from July, some for August. That's okay. We generally use and create the same rationales each time anyways. They very consistent about how people want to work during our time.
One thing that I quickly want to bring up for the agreements is because we're on an online platform, we would ask that we're okay if people need to turn off their camera and things like that. But if you're going to say something, if you're going to share, please just turn on your camera so people can see you. And then we also ask that if you are not talking, can you just please keep your microphone muted? Just because there tends to be sometimes feedback, things like that. So we just kind of want to add those online features to our agreements. So we are going to go over our learning targets for today. These are going to look a little familiar since some of them are very similar to the ones that we went through over the summer. So our learning targets are: I can integrate impacts of computing standards into plugged and unplugged activities. So that is basically your lesson plan and the different things you're adding for the standards into your lesson plan. And then I can align an impacts of computing standard to Bloom's. So that is going to be your rationale piece. So if you remember, I know summer feels like ages ago, at least for me. But during the summer, during your session, we gave you guys a template, a Bloom's template for your rationale. Doreen and I are going to share another copy of it a little later for you guys in case you can't find it or you don't have it. But this is what you're going to be using for your rationale. We've said this before that the first year we did this, the rationale is the thing that really got people anxious, nervous when it came to the portfolio. And we kind of found a system that actually makes it very easy for everyone involved. So that is going to be the second part of our learning target for today. We're going to talk a little bit about the lesson plan. We're going to talk about your rationale, And then we're also going to show you how to plug that into your portfolio.
All right, so for the impacts of computing, we're just going to talk a little bit about the sub-concept areas where thinking about these standards, thinking about where they can fit into our curriculum and continue to be integrated in our curriculum, even if you're not doing a lesson for your Smart Start grant portfolio. So thinking about society, you know, we really want to think about how society works, you know, these computers and technology works within a society, not only just in the US, but a global society. And then also thinking about how governments can enact laws to influence the impact of computing technologies on society. You know, different countries have different rules about things. So, for example, Facebook is open and free here, but in other countries it is not, or they have their own Facebook type of platform that's a little bit more controlled. Ethics, thinking about ethics, not only for people who are using technology, but for people who are creating technology and some of the tools that we're experiencing. You know, AI is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and into so many of the tools that we use all the time. So it's something that we really have to think about that. And not only about using wrong or the right way, but also thinking about some of the biases that can be built into technology and making sure that technology is accessible and usable for everybody. That leads us to accessibility. So thinking about that, thinking about a person's ability levels, not and also on things like, you know, adaptability, tools that people who might have a disability might not be able to use a mouse, you know, having those technologies that will help them do that. I know for esports, we have some keyboards and some mice that are made specially for people who might have some physical disabilities. And I know that there are some resources for some students who are visually impaired within esports. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we are making it inclusive and accessible for all. And then career paths. I really think we're going to be hard pressed to find a career out there that does not use technology in some way. Because even if you're using email, you're using technology to communicate. So thinking about the different career paths where you can bring people in. We are wrapping up the videos for the careers that we've filmed and I've just edited them and sent it back to the person who recorded, the videographer. We'll let you know when those are ready. And then we're already have 5 more scheduled. The ones that are coming up are, we have a urologist, we have who shows us the robot he uses to do operations, which is really cool. We have a dentist who uses 3D printing and just loves technology in his job. We have somebody who's a groundskeeper using a robot to mark fields and things like that, and a radio DJ and station manager. So we have some interesting roles there that you wouldn't necessarily think they use technology as much as they do. Excuse me. All right, any questions about this concept area and the sub-concepts that we just talked about?
I don't really have a question. I just have something to kind of share with the AI technology that I found interesting now that my daughter's applying for colleges.
Oh,
One of the colleges that she was applying for actually encouraged the students to put together their college essay using AI.
oh, interesting. That is
So
so interesting because the college professors are like, we don't want them using AI.
correct. Like she couldn't believe it. And I was like, are you sure? Like, are you kidding me right now? She's like, no. So when she brought it home to show me, I'm like, wow, so you have a choice to use AI, and they were embracing it. So knowing that this is going to be part of the future and they want the students to, you know how to use it. Of course, they have to select their own topic to be
Right.
writing about, but then, putting it through the program. So anyhow, that's
Amazing.
kind of side note. So
I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna share a lesson and just talk a little bit about the lesson and the standards that we have aligned in here so that you can see how we're taking those standards, creating our rationale that pulls in the activities the students are doing during this lesson and the standard language. So I'm gonna pop this open, make it
So
a
this-
lot bigger. Oops, too big.
So this lesson also, we're using it as a model for you guys to, again, it's been a while since summer, for you to kind of see how we want you to place where the standards are being hit within the body of your lesson. So you're going to see an example as we go through it.
And we only are focusing on the impacts of computing for this lesson, so we didn't embed them in the lesson for the rest. As we go through the different concept areas, you'll see how we change that. Parker, you want to talk a little bit about this lesson? Is this
Yeah.
one of yours?
Yeah, yes, I believe so. So you're going to notice that during this lesson, so this is a beginning of the school year lesson that I created for my class. And it was just their introduction to the rules of the school, that we wanted to talk about different environments that they have within a school building, such as how one rule in my classroom is walk, don't run. However, a rule in the gym is you can run. So we wanted to talk about the different places where students will be within the school building and how they should act within each of those places. And then we also wanted to add how students should also act when we're doing virtual lessons. So that's just within the learning targets. We talked about, we have our I can statements that you'll notice, and I'm not going to read the whole lesson to you guys. I'll just let you guys kind of glance at it. We made sure we added how this will meet the needs of students with disabilities and ELL students. So I just put a couple of things that we're doing. All of my students have IEPs. So I made sure that I put that students' IEPs will be reviewed to ensure student needs are met. But then I also just talked about some basic things that any classroom can do for all their students. So rules will be created and posted using a mix of words and pictures, and then students will have their option of giving their opinions using different modes of communication. And that's just a general that I have in my class. I put the content standards. You're going to notice that within these content standards, we didn't list out, we didn't copy and paste what the content standards said. You don't have to. How we have the content standards laid out is exactly how we want you guys to lay out your content standards. Now these standards, the computer science and digital fluency standards, these are the standards that we want to really make sure that you guys, that you copy and paste the identifier and the actual standard language. So we want to make sure that is in your lesson. And within this part, so you make sure the number there that says 2-3 IC.2, that is the standard identifier. Remember, we talked about that in the summer, and then we actually have the standard. So we want you to post both the identifier and the standard within your lesson. You're also going to notice that within this lesson, I hit two different sub-concept areas within impacts of computing. And then I also hit the concept area of computational thinking. Because you guys are only doing 5 lessons, and most of the time your lessons are going to hit more than one concept area or even more than one sub-concept area. So we're going to focus on just one of the impacts of computing concept areas for our rationale. But we wanted you to see that we were able to hit 2 sub-concept areas for impacts of computing, and then one sub-concept area in computational thinking. We also made sure that we put down the New York State SEL benchmarks. So we have those listed there. And then we're just going to jump into the instructional plan. So you're going to notice, again, I'm not going to go through the lesson with you guys, but you're going to notice that next to different parts of the lesson, we put the standard identifier and then we highlighted it. That is how we want you guys to add this to your lesson. So after you write your lesson, we want you to go through it and we want you to put the standard identifier for each of the standards you hit within your lesson in your body. Again, you don't have to type out the entire standard within the instructional plan, just the standard identifier, and then bold it and highlight it is what we're going to ask you to do. And the reason we're asking you to do that is just it's easier for Dorian and I to see and to find.
And also it's really, really clear where you think this is aligning to the standard. We do not need the SEL benchmarks added in this area, and we do not need content standards added in this area. That sometimes we get that question. Just the computer science and digital fluency standards.
And again, we just want to hit back. So can you scroll back up, Dorian, to the lesson? You're going to notice that we only put the impacts of computing standards in here. But within the lesson, I also hit a computational thinking standard, and I'm going to make sure I put that in here if I was handing this in for my portfolio. So you're going to put, again, all of the standard identifiers for all the concept and sub-concept areas you're hitting.
And this lesson template looks a little bit different than yours just because we finessed them each year. So you don't have the tech background or prior knowledge or the instructional technology integration. You just have your materials and resources. This is where you'll put, I used BrainPop video, I used PowerPoint, I used Google Slides. This one uses, has a resource for Padlet. This is where you'll add that. Sometimes people link it in this area, the bottom area, and sometimes people link it within the instructional plan. So you'll see that Parker had linked the Padlet right here as well. So it's up to you how you want to do that. We just need it somewhere because if you're sharing a template, we need to make a copy of it so that other people can view it after you're done with this portfolio.
Because again, we're going to make copies of it for everyone. And remember that really nice site that we showed you guys out of all the different lessons. We're going to be adding these lessons to that site.
All right, so you saw the lesson, you saw the standards that we're using. We're going to talk a little bit about the rationale, which is something that we did not really go into any detail over this summer. So the purpose of the rationale, it should convey teacher understanding of the authentic alignment to the standard and include learning outcomes. And the template that we're going to be using will help you do that very quickly and easily. So we have this template that you all have a copy of, and I'll pop a link to one in the chat before we go to our work time. But this is a Bloom's taxonomy framework or just graphic organizer that we're using. So it has this sentence in here. So by the time frame, by the end of the month, by the end of the unit, by the end of the week, by the end of 2 lessons, students will be able to, and you'll look at the key, you'll look at the key verbs here, find the specific one that aligns to what you're doing with this standard. Also, you might also find standard language within these verbs, okay? And then what they're doing, so the content, the concept, the skill. So that's pulling from your lesson, what you're doing with the learners. And as evidenced by, so an action verb, what are they doing? You know, are they building, computing, counting, discussing, graphing, grouping, any of those verbs? And then assessment or product. It could be a collaborative poster. It could be a digital poster. It could be a group presentation. It could be a discussion at their table. Whatever that end product is, you know, the learner outcomes is, that's what you'll put here. So this template will make writing your rationales super quick and easy. right, Debbie and Parker? So in this lesson, we use standard two, grade band 2-3 IC.2. So compare and explain rules related to computing technology and digital information. So that's the standard. You saw the lesson. It was rules in the, different rules for different areas. So by Friday, students will be able to define, so that's one of our key verbs there, what rules for in-person, online, and virtual environments. So that's taking information from the lesson, what the content of the lesson is. It's also aligning to the standard because it's a compare and explain rules. So they're going to be able to define the rules. So explain would be another word for that. As evidenced by creating. So they're going to create something that's that active verb, a poster of rules with words and images. So that's the outcome, right? That's what the learners are going to use to exhibit to share their knowledge with the teacher when the lesson is done. So it's a very easy way to pull all this together. If Parker and I were reviewing this, we'd be like, yeah, I can see that the teacher definitely understands the alignment of this standard to this lesson. And I can see clearly what the learner outcomes are going to be, what that product or assessment is. And it clearly aligns, clearly uses content information and has, essence of the standard language in there.
And what's really nice about doing this too is if you're like trying to wonder what kind of artifact or am I trying to put in that shows student work? Basically, what you're putting as your assessment or product will always work. So what I would do is I would either take some pictures and of a little collage of all the posters that my students made, or I would have taken some pictures of my students making the posters. But that product can also be your artifact, your proof of student work type situation that we're asking you to put in to the portfolio.
Does anybody have any questions before we show you how this works in your portfolio? Trying to practice my wait time. All right, so this is the portfolio. We're only showing you right now the impacts of computing area. We have to provide evidence of alignment to at least 3 of any of the sub-concept standards. The rationale we just wrote is for standard 2. So I have it in the correct sub-concept area. I have the standard identifier. I have the standard language. And this is where I pop in, and this one does say end of the week, and the other one said Friday, sorry. But that's where I pop my rationale in. And that's what Parker and I will be looking at as we go through each of your lessons, and we give you actually a completed rubric where we highlight your score and we give you some additional, we add additional information in there, yes, the rationale is correct. Yes, they had student evidence. This lesson is a great lesson, whatever. So, but this will show us that you really do understand the alignment of the standard to the lesson that you're doing. We've linked the lesson right here. And then for the student evidence, Parker linked the actual Padlet here. But you could have a Word doc, like Parker said, with several pictures of the posters or pictures of kids creating the posters, so that, yes, we can see that students are, getting immersed in something that's aligned to the standard.
And when we've talked about the evidence of student work, another positive of adding that for us is if we had a small question about how it connects, sometimes that student evidence piece actually clears it up for us. So that's why we're asking you to also post student evidence. It's just, it will help us really see that you fully understand how the standard integrates into that lesson or activity.
You'll also see that with this lesson, we've hit 2 sub-concept areas. So we just have to hit one more in the other lessons that we're doing.
Doreen,
Yes.
can you just go back one slide? So do you just put the rationale for the lesson in the main one you're trying to hit, or do you copy and paste it for every one?
That's a
It's-
great question. Okay, so this rationale is only for this standard. So for each standard, you are going to have to add a rationale because the standards are different, right? So the language is very different in these areas. I mean, they both align with this lesson, but when you go to write it, it's going to be different for every standard. So you're going to have a rationale for every standard you're aligning to. Does that make sense, Jessica?
Yeah, so then at what point are you like overdoing it? How many? If you
So
have like for your introduction to rules lesson, you had, I think, 3.
Mhm.
If you're going up to like 5 things you're hitting, are you kind of overdoing it and spread them out better?
it
I
depends
mean,
on the lesson, really and truly. Like we have had people just align one standard, and because that was the one they needed to hit one more standard, so they just did that. And I'll say in my feedback in their rubric, I'll say this could also align to this, and this standard, because some people do go over the top. I know we had some people try to hit a standard from every concept area. That, in our opinion, is a little bit of overkill and not really necessary and not really true alignment, right? So a lesson, that's something that you can talk with your coaches when you meet with them, but really whatever is appropriate for that lesson, that you feel is appropriate for that lesson, is the right number to align it to.
and think about it like this: different parts of the lesson are hitting different standards. So my product for the same lesson, even though I'm handing in one example of student evidence for that whole lesson in all the different concept areas, my product with the template that we're showing you guys might be a little different. Like my product for one standard could be the discussion that we're having when you're looking. Can you go back to the template, Doreen?
Yep.
So the part that, the C part, the assessment or product, I could say for this one standard that the students will X, Y, and Z as evidenced by participating in a classroom discussion on the topic, while then another part of the lesson would be this, that they're creating the poster of rules. And I'm still hitting 2 different standards, and I'm having 2 different products for each of those standards within one lesson. Does that make sense? Okay, so I don't want you to think that just because you said in this one part of the lesson that this is your product, a different part of your lesson might have a different product that's showing assessing the students, because we're assessing the students with these standards throughout the entire lesson, not just the end product.
So Doreen and Parker, do our lessons have to be contained within one unit, or can we just pick lessons that we think are going to fit in there no matter what is happening?
Yes. You can
Yes.
pick lessons. You can pick one lesson that's in a unit about the beginning of school, and then you can pick another lesson that's from January that's about the human body. If
Okay.
that, for a health unit or different things like that. So you can jump around. It does not have to be all contained within
Oh,
the
awesome.
same.
Thanks.
I mean, we
Yeah.
have had people create a unit with 5 lessons that was a very technology focused unit, right? And they were able to do it. I've only seen that once though.
Yeah, I think that's where Jenny and I were headed. So
And
thank
if,
you.
if that works for you, good, but you don't have to.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so what we would like to do, just checking the time here, is give you some time to work on your rationale for, this is impacts of computing, but if you don't have a lesson that is ready yet with impacts of computing standards, feel free to work on a lesson that you maybe started on Friday of our last day together, or you maybe want to finesse the one you worked on to create completely on that Thursday. But whatever you want to use this work time, around the Smart Start grant, feel free to do that. And we're going to give you about, 25 minutes, Parker, 20 minutes?
About 20 minutes. So we'll come back at 7:25.
And we might ask some of you to share out your rationale. All right, so you can turn off your camera and we'll just give you some time to work. If you have questions, unmute, type in the chat if you want, or turn on your camera and ask us any questions. We're here. Our cameras will be off, but we are here.
Hey, Doreen, Parker, Mike and I are going to jump into a breakout room because I just want to talk to him about my coaching sessions this week and just kind of some, summaries or whatever. If you're interested, I'll throw you in and you can come in or not. But anyway, we just wanted to kind of touch base and use this as an opportunity, if that's okay.
Okay, I might pop in just to give you an update on the new signees.
And then I'll stay here just in case anyone has
Okay.
questions. All right, so we're gonna come back together. We really hope that this time was beneficial for you guys as you were working on your rationale. This is one thing that in the past we would have you guys. We had our groups work on a rationale for a lesson that we created. And through feedback and talking with other people, we found that it actually felt like it might be more helpful for you guys to actually have this time to work on your own rationales, and then for us be around and ask questions. So we hope that this was really helpful and meaningful to you guys. Does anybody want to be a risk taker today and share out their rationale? All right, Larissa.
I'll be a risk taker.
Oh, I like it.
Um,
Thank you.
So this was a civics lesson and it was the one that I did over the summer. And then we implemented it in, a few weeks ago in regards to classroom rules. And we actually did it around Constitution Day. And we created a classroom constitution. As you know, Constitution Day is on September 17th. So I think we were off on school, but we did it the following day. And I brought in my pocket constitutions for them and everything else. So anyhow, I'm hoping that this is okay. By the end of the civics lesson, students will be able to distinguish between a right and responsibility as evidenced. I can't read my own writing, sorry. By stating the freedom that the U.S. Constitution gives you and sharing an idea to add to our own classroom constitution. Oh, and this was in a response situation on Seesaw. that the students were able to create. I have a template on there where they can add to, you know, the freedom that the US Constitution gives you, and then sharing their idea to add to our own classroom constitution. So I don't know.
Doreen, you're muted.
Sorry. What, which, standard identifier was that one for? I'm sorry if I missed
Oh
it.
gosh, I knew you were going to ask me that, and my lesson is in Teams right now that I don't,
Don't worry
that I
about it. Don't worry
just,
about
that I just X'd out of. I
So what I
apologize
love
on that.
it. Is that you have taken a civics lesson and aligned it to the computer science and digital fluency standards. So that's what I love that. And that's what we're really trying to get across to people, that is, these are not just technology standards, the same like learning concepts and the developing the mastery of these standards. It can be in any classroom. So I really like that. So a good job and thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else like to share? Go ahead, Jessica.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I was trying to do the NSD 3 and CT 8 and 9, which basically all three are kind of like they're identifying a problem and they're trying to solve the problem on their own. So for the NSD 3, it's I said by October, students will be able to evaluate troubleshooting steps to solve a simple tech problem as evidenced by solving, and now I'm stuck. I don't know what evidence to use of them actually doing the solving, because it's kind of a as it arises. Like I have an IT department and I've got posters up and they've been trained on how to solve it. I don't know how to say what my evidence is, because not every kid's going to have a tangible thing.
So it
Do I
could
make up-
be just them verbally telling you how they solve the problem. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be a tangible product. It could be a discussion. And you
Okay.
could just summarize the discussion by sharing with the teacher the steps they took, right?
Yeah.
That you don't want to add another element if it's something that's going to be like a quick and easy thing. You don't want to have them document it, unless there's something like a help desk ticket system that you have in your classroom. I don't know if you have that, but it sounds like you have the tech team in your classroom, right?
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I might steal that idea. I do have like one of the kids' jobs is the tech person,
Okay.
but it doesn't, yeah, it's not inclusive of the whole class learning that, or proof that the whole class has learned it. So yeah,
Jessica,
I can just say sharing out in like a discussion of what ifs.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, I'm wondering if, just incorporating like a 5-minute reflection piece / class discussion. Okay, guys, we just did this. How many of you had problems? What did you do to solve them? What steps did you take? So it's just like a real quick kind of, like I said, post-lesson reflection to actually get the kids like in a metacognitive level to think, oh, I did something and it actually ended up working or something like that. And then just kind of summarizing that.
And
Okay.
that could be
Thank
with
you.
any tool you're using in your classroom, right? This is something that's going to be in siloed. It's going to be something that maybe you're doing something in a new software, or maybe you're doing something in BrainPop or Seesaw, and some kids are having some trouble, just pulling them all together at the end, like Debbie said. But this is something that could be really ongoing throughout the entire school year.
All right. Anybody else?
I can share.
Okay.
Okay, great.
I worked with Andy. Andy and I did the Rubik's Cube in math last week. And so students were trying different ways to solve the Rubik's Cube. And we first did like 10 minutes of them on their own, then 10 minutes with a partner, then 10 minutes with resources. So we said by the end of September, students will be able to identify and recognize mistakes in their algorithms when breaking down a complex task, as evidenced by trying different website resources to support their processes.
Without seeing the lesson and looking at everything, that sounds like a perfect rationale to me. It sounds really good.
Okay, awesome.
And this is, these rationales, when you meet with your coaches, then they can really, they have more knowledge of the lesson, so they can look at that and say, yeah, this makes sense. This is showing, student outcomes, is pulling in language from your lesson about the content, is pulling in some language from the standard. But it seems like you guys are on the right track, definitely.
And again, that template is going to be something that really helps you as you're getting ready to write the rationale. And know that you're going to copy and paste your rationale into the portfolio. So we're not going to see your template.
Right.
That template can be, I personally would probably, even though as much as I love tech, I go through a lot of revisions on paper. And I would probably, as I'm trying to figure it out, I might actually print out a couple of copies and just kind of start, oh, maybe this sounds better. Or maybe this is what I want to do, and cross off different parts and add new ones. And so we're not seeing your template. That's yours. We're just going to see the final product.
Right. Anybody else like to share?
Doreen and Parker, I have a question. When I was going through, I wrote a rationale for the second lesson that Jenny and I had written together. And as I was going through the rationale and kind of comparing and contrasting with the standard that we had associated with it, I'm kind of noticing that we actually, it's kindergarten, first grade standard as opposed to a second or third grade standard. So being that we're in special education, is it okay for us to go across grade level bands like that? Or do we have to keep everything in our grade level band?
Nope, you can go
No.
across grade level bands.
And can you make sure on your lessons that you put, because we might not remember
Yeah,
that.
we have
Go ahead.
special ed. Yeah, we have it.
Okay,
marked.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because that makes absolute sense. We've had teachers do that. It makes sense, right? You want to make sure that you're using the appropriate standards for the learning abilities of your students. So
Right.
go ahead and keep doing that.
So then do all of the, every standard that we use in our portfolio has to be K1, or can
No,
we?
no,
No.
you can jump, you
Beautiful.
can jump around. Like I'm a 3-5 special ed
Yep.
classroom, but there are some students I might be working in with a small group that are more the K1 standards. But then there's another group I pulled in that are more the 4-6.
Okay.
And I would pull those in for that lesson. So that's fine.
I mean,
Awesome.
we've had teachers do a lesson and there's 3 standards aligned and all 3 of them are from different grade bands.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yep. That's okay too.
Yay.
All right. So thank you so much for those of you who shared. All right, coaches.
Okay, I'll jump in first, although I'm looking at the screen and I think most of you I've already met with. So Mike and I kind of have divided up our assignments. And so right now I'm working with teachers in Pittsford, Brighton, Fairport, East Arundecoit, East Rochester. I think those are it. For the most part, and again, because I've met with most of you or I've heard from most of you, we've set up our meetings. And just to let you all know this, I mean, the goal is just to kind of touch base and reintroduce ourselves and say, hey, how's it going? What do you need? I will tell you at least 50% of the people that I've met with in the last week have said, I haven't thought about this at all since we left in summer. And that's okay. That's absolutely the perfect place for you to be, because of course you're getting used to, your class, your routines, you're establishing your norms. But just to kind of reinforce that, Mike and I are here to do and to support whatever you need. And it could be something, from a technical, I've answered like questions about, not about the share or anything. That's really not an issue, but like, where did I put my stuff this summer? I didn't even remember doing that. And then, today we were brainstorming about, hey, you could do this for a lesson, or you could do this for a lesson. It really is incredibly open-ended. I look forward to those of you who I haven't met with yet, sitting down and meeting with you and just having these conversations and just reinforcing the idea that, Mike and I are both here to really just be your thinking partners. And I think that's it there was something else I felt like I wanted to say. Can't remember it. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you and maybe I'll remember it by the time you get done.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, like Debbie said, I'm really looking forward to being a support and a thinking partner for everybody. I'm working with Penfield, Monroe One BOCES, West Arundecoit, and we're bringing on a couple of districts on the west side that I'll be helping with as well in a coaching role. So I'm really excited to be doing that. Really enjoying the conversations at the webinars and over the summer training. It's really fun for me to get back into the classroom. It's been a while, so it's really nice to be thinking about instruction in a little bit different way. So I'm looking forward to conversations. And like Debbie said, if you haven't had a chance to respond to the form that we sent out, just asking how can we be helpful and what's the best way to get in touch with you to set up times, please do, so we can get those meetings on the calendar and get into the classrooms and be helpful to you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I remember what I wanted to say. Also, again, for my folks, I don't want to speak for Mike, with the exception of Fairport, because I'm still missing the name. Does anybody know? Although I don't think there's anybody here from Fairport. I need the Joanna Perrin principal, but I have emailed all of your principals to let them know that you are participating in this work. Give them just kind of a cliff notes of what that looks like and what the expectations are on you, and then encouraging them to reach out to you to not only make a connection, but also perhaps, find out what you need and what kind of support you need from them. And so have actually received back some nice notes from many of the principals saying, thanks for letting me know. I'll definitely reach out. So that's been done. And hopefully, again, fingers crossed that they'll be tapping you and saying, not only what can I do to support, but hey, can I get you to share with the rest of our faculty? Because this is really great work that you're doing.
Julianne put in that the JP principal is Pat Grow. You're muted, Debbie.
Is it going to be, do you know, is it pat.grow or is it going to patrick.grow? That was where, oh, perfect. Thank you, Katie. Kate.
All right. Anything else? We good to move? Any questions for the coaches? So just to reiterate, we do have robots available. And if you need an instructional technology specialist to pop in with the robots, feel free to ask the ITS at Monroe BOCES, which is myself and Kate Rice. And then we are running a Smart Start Fall cohort. So if you know of somebody who couldn't attend this summer, or summer is hard for them to attend, it is a little different because it's 2 face-to-face and 2 full hybrid days, and they'll get the stipend works that they get paid for the hybrid days. And then we're doing virtual work sessions, facilitate work sessions that take place of like your Friday that you experienced. But it's in Frontline and it's open. The first face-to-face day is October 11th. So they just need to be registered and approved before then. We'll resend out the lesson resource link that you can access whenever you want. And look at the different resources there. Real quick about the robots, if you want them, email me. Email my BOCES email. I think everybody should have that. And tell me the dates that you want the items. We'll make sure they get delivered to you. And then NiceGate is coming up. It's always the weekend it starts on the Saturday and goes to the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. There is a whole strand about the standards. So there'll be a lot of 1 hours that you can participate in. And actually a couple people who went through the Smart Start are doing some poster sessions. So that's really exciting. But that's up and available. And then there's also the Student Scene Fest on Friday, the Maker Fair on Saturday. We've had a lot of our local districts bring students to the Student Scene Fest. It's a phenomenal experience. You can put it through the Arts and Education coaster, so you get aid on it if you're interested in that. But I think that's all I have for that. Okay, Parker.
All right. So what we want to do for our optimistic closing for today is we want to do one of the chat waterfall. So what we are going to do is we want you to think about last time we talked about the standards. was either July or August, depending on what cohort you were part of. Now that we're back in school and we're starting the webinars, your mind's starting to think about the standards again. And what we want you to do is we want you to write in the chat. Do not do it yet, please. But what we would like you to do is in the chat, we're going to want you to type in one word to describe how you're feeling about the standards right now. What a chat waterfall is you have everyone type it into chat, and then at the same time, when I say go, I let everyone hit enter, and it looks like a waterfall. However, we don't have that many people, so it won't be as cool. But it's still fun. So I want everyone to take the next 30 seconds to just type
Just
into
stream, just a trickle of a stream.
just a little bit, right?
Little bit.
Drizzle.
So,
A schmear, that's what they say in Scotland, a schmear.
so
Sorry.
a chat drizzle. So what we would like you guys to do is just in the chat write one word that describes how you're feeling right now that we're talking about the standards again. And then wait till I tell you to hit enter. All right, and when I say go, everyone's going to hit enter at the same time. So 3, 2, 1, go. Well, that was,
Comfy, love that.
I liked it. It was still satisfying, so that's good. And take a second, just see how everybody is feeling about the standards right now.
This is way better than our first year, I have to tell you.
I'm telling you, every year, you guys are a third year, and every year just gets a little more positive, which is nice. All right, well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I hope you guys have a good last couple of days of September and get ready for October because it's already upon us.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have
All
a
right,
wonderful
thank you,
night.
everybody.